Hi, everybody. This is David Nevins for Citybiz List. And today we continue with another one of our programs on behalf of the Bridge Alliance, which we call Repairing America's Broken Democracy. And I think most of you understand that it needs a little bit of repair. And so therefore, toward that end, our guest today is Dr. Stephen Kull. Stephen is the founder and president of an organization called Voice of the People. Welcome to our program, Stephen.
Thanks for having me.
He is also, by the way, I just want to throw this in so people get to know you. You're a political psychologist, director of the program for public consultation, a long title within the School of Public Policy at the University of Maryland. We are in Maryland filming this. We love the University of Maryland. So go Terps, and good luck with what your efforts there. So, Stephen, you founded an organization called Voice of the People. Tell us a little bit about it and what you hope to accomplish and how you're going about that.
Okay. Well, this was driven to a large extent by the perception that right now government is kind of stuck. It's highly polarized, and there is a widespread perception that this is a mirror of the American people. The Congress, the polarization Congress, is a reflection of polarization among the people. And the program for public consultation, for some years now, we've been studying the American public, and we have found actually there's quite a lot of common ground when it comes to public policy issues, so that the public has the potential to really break through, to find a path through this polarization. It's possible to build on the common ground of the people. And Voice of the People was created to give the public a greater voice in government, to reveal this underlying common ground, not to create it, not to make it happen, but to reveal the common ground that is actually already there when you give people the right tools to weigh in on the public policy issues that Congress is dealing with and frequently gets stuck on.
So I would agree. I think most of our viewers would agree. I mean, we all have dining room type conversations and so forth, and we talk about the issues. I think, the divide on a lot of the issues is not that great. It just seems though that we can't get there. I don't know if it's, my own view is it's somewhat the result of a gerrymandered Congress. Tell us about what your organization is doing to bridge this divide and get us moving forward together.
Well, I do think that members of Congress do deal with competing forces. They encounter special interests. They deal with campaign donors. They deal with lobbyists and so on. And they tend to assume that all these pressures coming on them are, in fact, somehow representative of the people. And that's just that's mistaken. So, how do we give the public a greater voice? Members have some contact with constituents in a kind of haphazard way, but it's not systematic and it's not representative. Polls are generally, they help, but the people, they deal with a very limited number of issues that people have awareness of. And so, and often they don't have enough information to really give meaningful inputs. They haven't heard both sides of the issue, things like that. So, members of Congress don't pay too much attention to polls. And as I say, they're very limited. So we've developed a new method to consult the public. Now, there's a field of public consultation that's been around a while where you get groups of people together and you brief them and so on. But we have been developing a method to do this over the internet. And that creates the possibility of really going to scale. And what we do is we take people through a process called a policymaking simulation. And the idea is that we're putting them in the shoes of the policymaker. So they get a briefing on an issue that Congress is dealing with. They are presented the policy options under consideration. They evaluate arguments pro and con, and then ultimately they make their recommendations. And all of this content is reviewed by opponents and proponents of the policy proposals that are being considered. Then people go, we have a few thousand people, representative samples, go through these processes online, and all this is put together, and we see where the public comes out. We also put these online so that anybody can go through them and use them as tools to formulate their opinions and recommendations and send them on to their members of Congress.
Dr. Kull, I mean, have you seen examples yet of situations where, as the result of this, the gridlock has been lessened and polarization reduced, or is it something we hope will happen in the future once more members of Congress are made aware of how their constituents actually feel?
Well, there have been cases where the work we've done has played some role in the process. There was a big debate about net neutrality, and there was really virtually no polling on the subject because people didn't really know what net neutrality was. So the public really had no voice. And we did one of our processes where we explained it all to them, the pros and cons, and they came out overwhelmingly in favor of retaining net neutrality. And then this became part of the reporting on the subject. It was discussed on the floor of Congress and so on, these findings. And so it became very clear where the public was on it. Another example is in regard to sentencing reform. It's easy to think, the public wants to be tough on crime and they're going to want to be very punitive. And the safe thing to do politically is to be tough and have heavy sentencing and so on. But and there was a proposal to the First Step Act to limit sentencing and to not have mandatory sentencing so much and things like that. And we took people through this process. There were 11 key choices, and bipartisan majorities supported them all. And the Judiciary Committee took these findings, sent them out in press releases. It got good press coverage and so on. And so it seemed to play a role in the process, and the legislation did pass. And these are, I shouldn't overplay it too much, but there is this potential really to make it a much bigger force in the process, in the policy process, where more people become aware of this, of the issues, and ultimately we see the possibility of doing it in specific districts. So members of Congress hear from their constituents, and senators hear from their constituents. And though we already do large enough samples so that we can see the views in like very red districts to very blue districts, and it's very surprising how actually they are not all that different. So we are working to give the public a greater voice as much as possible, and it does seem that it does have some impact on the policy process.
I would certainly hope so, and I would understand that. I know a minute or two ago I mentioned the term gerrymandering, and I don't know if you get involved in this at all in your work, but just kind of relative to how the constituents of a particular representative or senator may feel, many people think they're not really all that interested in how their entire district may feel. They're more interested in how their base may feel, because that's the if they're going to lose the election as the result of gerrymandering, they're going to lose in a primary and not in a general election, and maybe that contributes to this kind of lack of really understanding and getting people together and learning that we are not as divergent on the issues as people think.
Yeah, well, there are certainly issues where the base, the political partisan base, is maybe different from the general public, and there's kind of debate about which one should you pay attention to more and so on. Now, we have started though with identifying those areas where there is common ground between Republicans and Democrats. And using this process, these policymaking simulation surveys, we've identified now 170 areas, 170 policy proposals in a wide range of areas where there is already common ground between Republicans and Democrats. So there is already a lot to build on. Now, all of the forces coming at members of Congress are not, they don't have so much common ground. They're competing, they're polarized. And the truth is that members of Congress have very poor understanding of the views of their constituents, even of their own party. We've done numerous studies on this, and other researchers have worked on it. And it's now really a well-established fact that members of Congress have very poor understanding, including of their constituents. They hear from advocacy groups, they hear from special interests, and so on. And from this, they formulate impressions. But if you give the public greater voice, there's not on every issue. I mean, there are some many issues on which there is some partisan polarization, but there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of common ground. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit. And if we would start with that and have that on the table and make that a guiding force in the policy process, we could get a lot done where there's not much being done now.
Yeah, Stephen, I would agree. Number one, and secondly, it just I share with us another example or two. I mean, when I sit down and talk to friends who are maybe on the other side of the aisle, so to speak, politically, it really turns out that even on the major issues, the big ones that seem to get the most attention, immigration and gun control and the like, there's the differences are not, as you know, they're not that great. There are nuanced differences and so forth. So what are you finding? And then as you grow this concept and in terms of public consultation, online public consultation, how do you communicate that to the decision makers so that it's getting them to understand this, right? So that they're not just all the time voting the way they think they ought to vote.
Yeah. Well, it's important to note that when you're a candidate that's trying to establish yourself and get, particularly in the context of a primary, it often pays, if you're trying to get attention, to focus on polarizing issues and to really emphasize it and emphasize your difference with your opponent, right?
Right.
And then you start building up your identity around those polarizing issues. And it's not that there aren't any polarizing issues. There are some. It's just that there are many areas of common ground. And you take the immigration issue. There's debate, there's polarization about whether we should have a wall between Republicans and Democrats. But there are all kinds of issues, including establishing a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants and so on, and helping and creating a path for dreamers and establishing work visas and all kinds of things that could deal with the immigration issue. There's also support for using E-Verify to establish that workers are legal or have documentation and so on, and that gets all those positions get bipartisan support. So you can focus on the common ground, or you can focus on what's polarizing, and there are incentives to the latter, unfortunately. But there are still members of Congress who do want to get things done, and it's a question of aligning them, getting them attuned to where that support is. And something that we're doing in specific districts now is we get a member of Congress who says they're interested, and then we do a survey in their district. And then we invite some of the people who took the survey to come to an event with the member. We present the findings to the member, and then we have a whole discussion. You know, what's really interesting is people don't argue much in that context because they've seen the pros and the cons. Most people find both the pro and the con is at least somewhat convincing. So people see, yeah, there are complexities, and there's a very kind of, you know, meaningful civil conversation between the citizens and the member, and the members like that a lot, you know, because that's just the kind of exchange they want to have. They want us to kind of come together and think about these things, where, you know, looking at both sides of the issue and trying to find a good pathway forward, rather than making it a power struggle. And it's not necessary for it to be a power struggle.
Well, kudos to that, and good luck going forward. Just in closing, Stephen, how can our viewers either contact you or learn more about Voice of the People and get involved and support your efforts?
Okay. So if you go to VOP.org, Voice of the People, you can sign up and get information about what the work we're doing. You can also go online and do a policymaking simulation yourself on a whole range of topics, immigration, Social Security, international relations, all kinds of things. And then you can, at the end, enter your address, and your members of Congress will pop up, and you can send them off to your members of Congress and make your voice heard on those issues. And then stay tuned for what else will be coming in the future, because there are always new topics coming up all the time. Well,
I would really encourage our viewers to go online and fill out that survey, and then you automatically. Do you pass it along to their member?
It's automatically forwarded on to their representatives if you want them, and you can add some words about why you decided what you did.
Good.
So it's all well set up for you.
Well, thank you for joining us, and we wish you a lot of luck. And I encourage all of our viewers to go online and check out Voice of the People and fill out your survey and let your members of Congress know how you think. Dr. Kull, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
This has been David Nevins for Citybiz List. Again, on behalf of the Bridge Alliance, and continuing with our series entitled Repairing America's Broken Democracy. Voice of the People is obviously trying to do that. We hope you enjoyed the program. Thank you for watching.